Donald Davidoff, co-founder and CEO of Real Estate Business Analytics, here for another episode of The People Behind the Performance, where I sit down with key leaders and innovators to dive into what's really driving the real estate industry's success, the role data plays in it all, and maybe most importantly, tell the stories of some of the people behind it. So today I have a very special guest. Jessica Fern Kirkland is a transformative thought leader with 15 years of experience challenging norms, fostering innovation across various domains. Her expertise spans learning, development, technology, product, and operations, consistently achieving exceptional results. Her unique transformation approach integrates cutting-edge solutions, psychology, science, and industry insights, making her the ultimate X factor for any organization. Holding a bachelor's degree in psychology from Capella University and a product management certification from the Pragmatic Institute. She's also a sought-after speaker and recipient of prestigious industry awards. She serves as the chair of the Human Services Commission of the City of Covington and is also an executive board member for Psychotherapy Racing. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. I feel like every time I listen to my bio, I'm like, I gotta cut that thing short.
The most awkward thing I ever do is listen to somebody else read my bio.
No.
Yes, if I could cut it to 5 words, I think I would. Hey, this is Donald. Listen,
Yep.
there, we're done.
Exactly.
Anyway,
Yep.
so yeah, it is awkward. So I mean, as you think about the industry today, what's on your mind?
Gosh, there's so many things that are on my
Mhm.
mind, and I love talking about data. I'm a little bit of a nerd. Like I remember when I
Mhm.
was getting my degree, like finding a love for statistics to be able to quantify and qualify the things that I was thinking, which it's interesting because that's not an intuitive strategy in multifamily. I've sat
Mhm.
around many different tables where, you've got the person whose voice is the loudest, opinions that sounds great without any validation. And it actually wasn't until I was in a role in product where I was like, I knew that we needed more than just how people felt, And I love the where data is going in the industry. And I think the biggest concern is, and this is something that I've been very outspoken about, is just a skill gap that exists in multifamily today. I started as a leasing professional back in the day. I mean, everyone just heard my bio. So,
Yeah.
but my story is not necessarily unique. There are lots of people who have worked their way up to a C-suite role just because of the work they put in and their experience, which I absolutely love. I just recently graduated like this year, so I didn't have a formal education going in. And where the industry is going on the verge of another digital era, we're not hiring or training or preparing our end users or site employees to digest data, to be able to aggregate insights, or to be able to use these sophisticated technologies that are coming out. And
Mhm.
even the NAA credentials, your CAPS, your CAM, nowhere in those credential skills, unless something's changed in the last 12 months, does it say that you even need to be good at technology. And
Mhm.
there's a disparate training impact where we don't even have content to support these types of things. So there's a disconnect that's going to happen. It already is happening, and it's either going to be the prop tech operators that are
Mhm.
pushing out this technology that almost forces a organizational structure change in multifamily, or the other way around. And my best forecast, which I've been pretty good at making predictions, is that the technology is going to break multifamily in the way that it currently exists in very siloed structures, and
Mhm.
data, centralized data. The way that we communicate about things is going to be critical. I mean, for example, we don't even benchmark NOI the same.
Right.
Everybody does it differently, right? Like, are you
Right.
using market rent or net effective rent? Like, what are you doing? And it's going to become, it will transition to be the common language, will be data, in my
Mhm.
opinion. So,
Well, we certainly hope so, Reed. But it's funny you say you talk about rent. Is it gross? Is it net effective, et cetera? I think we have something like 24 different rent numbers inside Ariba, right? There's raw, there's lease over lease, there's new, renewal, blended, gross, net effective, and if somebody says rent or somebody says market rent, like that's actually a very ambiguous term.
It is. You're totally right. And it's what's interesting is that we put so much weight to compare our market rent against
Mm.
other people's. Like there are full-on solutions that will perform a market survey, but we're all doing it differently. Like who even knows,
Yeah.
I mean, that's low-hanging fruit to me.
Yeah.
Like it's all agree
So
we're gonna do it the same way.
yeah. So what makes you excited about the industry? You've been in it for a while, clearly have a passion for it. What makes you excited about it?
Yeah, I think where it's going. I think where it's
Mm.
going, I've actually been doing a lot of research on the history of multifamily, where it came from, how it's evolved, and to see where our industry is changing to support everyday lives of people.
Mhm.
Housing is something that's really important to me. Housing is a basic need. We take care of the way that people live. It's an honor to work in
Mm.
multifamily. I'm excited for it to hopefully be considered an actual career. Most people who end up in multifamily don't mean to be here. We all just
Yep.
happened. And
Yep.
it's, exciting and fun enough where we want to stay and we can't go back to normal jobs because we've been here. So I'm excited to see the technology adoption happen over the next few years. I think that 2024, as residents kind of dig their heels in and they're staying, it's going to be
Mm.
a very retention forward year next year, based on the forecasting that I've seen and the economic outcomes that I've seen recently and predictions. It will be a really good time for operators to assess how they
Yeah.
want to move forward. And some of the patterns that I'm seeing too is unwinding all of the products that have been stacked on over the years. There was a period of time where technology was fairly new, at least innovative technology, and we just threw products at problems. No one
Mm.
cared that nothing talked to each other. Nobody cared. I mean, we're like, this is cool, let's do it. This is cool, let's do it. But it's becoming more
Mm.
important, not only economically, you can't afford 8,000 products, but from a data perspective and aggregation priority to be able to have like succinct systems that talk to each other well consistently that people actually understand. So I'm excited to see how technology moves multifamily into the 21st century. We're historically behind the times.
Yep.
And I do think that the consideration of single family as a new asset class is going to be super helpful because single family has been doing this for years. They're way
Right.
ahead of our times.
Yeah. No, single family has to. The distance just requires technology. I'm curious. You mentioned earlier that you've been studying the history of multifamily. What's sort of the most interesting thing applicable to today that you learned?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is my working hypothesis. So
Mm.
in the 1980s, early 90s is really where we see with legislation and different tax laws and new tax legislation and tax breaks, we really see it drive the need for third party property management. And a
Mm.
lot of the individuals who are today in a position of authority, because again, a lot of them, like me, work their way up. There are not a lot of things that have changed in the way that we operate our business,
Mm.
from how we want to collect rent, how we're thinking about architecting buildings, how we're thinking about floor plans, how we're thinking about general operations, the structure where you've got the community that's staffed with a manager, leasing, et cetera. You've got a regional manager and then a whole disparate corporate operations center. That was the same back in the early 80s or late 80s and
Yeah.
early 90s. The people who are in a position of power now, with the exception of a few, that was their bread and butter. And as you work your way up, if the things that you're doing have always been successful, there is less incentive to change. And I think that that's something that is very interesting in
Mhm.
just psychologically, right? Like if I'm a leader and I work my way up and I've built my entire success on this strategy, the way that I was taught multifamily, it's almost this heritage mindset where it's going to take a lot of confidence and a lot of humility to say this might need to change. I don't know
Yeah.
where it's supposed to go, and I've got no idea how to get there. It takes a
Yeah.
lot of guts. And so I think that the more leaders who have built their companies a specific way, residents are always going to change our industry, and residents have changed, and there's this disconnect between where we were and where we are that I think is being
Mhm.
perpetuated by some of the folks who are in a position of authority who might be unwilling to embrace innovation. Myself and a few other people who are considered disruptors in the industry, we are, a lot of us are unemployed. I'm doing my own thing. I'm self-employed now, but there's
Yeah.
there's got to be correlations, right? Maybe not
Right.
causation, but correlation for sure.
So what do you see as the sort of biggest gap between residents today versus the past, or the things that really drive the need for that innovation?
Yeah, I mean, resident expectations for sure.
Mhm.
I just went to a digital marketing conference, and one of the things that I learned was how the keyword search for the word luxury apartments has gone down. And in
Mhm.
my head, I was thinking about, well, is luxury just the expectation? Like, is
Yeah.
luxury the new market rent? And
Yeah.
luxury is kind of a BS. It's like saying
Yeah. It's
AI, right?
overused. Yeah.
It's very overused. But I expect fast service. I expect not to have to enter my information twice. I expect
Mhm.
certain things just based on the accessibility of my own life in a mobile first environment. And if we're not like just because you are adding things to bring your organization up to the level of a resident expectation to them, value proposition wise, you're not doing anything new and innovative. This you're just meeting
Yeah.
the expectation.
Yeah.
So I think that the residents are really driving the need. I mean, obviously, I think everyone's really beat the lockdown changes and expectations and resident needs to death. But I mean, it did really, I think, change the way that people viewed their homes, especially apartment living. And now people are looking; it's a little bit more acceptable to want to live in an apartment, and we're seeing more families want to live
Mhm.
in larger homes or in the single family. So that I think stereotypical, if I rent, I'm not going to live the American dream is starting to fizzle, and people are embracing this very fluid lifestyle that renting brings.
Yeah. Interesting. So, when you think back on your career, who is your most influential mentor? Who'd you learn the most from?
Oh my gosh. I've been asked this question before, and I honestly don't know. I think I've learned a lot from what not to do from people. But I think if I have to name someone, her name's Johanna, and she is actually
Mm.
the National Learning and Training Director at ConAm Management. And
Okay.
she,
Mhm.
she picked me to be the first member of the training department, and her and I are still friends today, and she really taught me a level of excellence that prepared me to take on the rest of my career. And she's wonderful. She's not as forward facing as me, but she really put me in a position to go after whatever I wanted. So I would in the industry it would definitely be her.
Oh, cool. So, I always like this particular question because I've thought about it even myself. I mean, if you could go back and teach Jessica, if today's Jessica could go back and teach the Jessica who just started as a leasing agent something, about the industry or something about life that Jessica today knows, Jessica back then just didn't know. What would that be? That you wish your Jessica of yesteryear knew?
I love this question because it's like, oh yeah, what would I? I think that I would reinforce to myself that my success is 100% dependent on the effort that I put in, and doing things the right way will be important. Like, trust your instincts.
Mhm.
I've which I've managed to do, but it's not always been easy. My personal mantra is integrity always prevails, and as you climb up the ladder, you sometimes are in situations where it might be easy to compromise, not because other people are making, unethical decisions, but because it would be really easy not to call out something that you see that goes against the grain. And that's
Mhm.
something that I really pride myself in, is being able to make objective choices and doing things the right way. And it takes a lot of self trust.
Mhm.
And I would tell myself not to compare myself to anybody. That would be the
Yeah.
other one. Like,
Yeah.
you do
Cool.
you.
Exactly, exactly. So, you talked a lot about data and, I don't know, the term data-driven decision making seems to get thrown around a lot. It's almost like luxury, right? It sort of loses its meaning in its ubiquity. But when you think about it, I mean, Reba, we're all about first party data. We're all about, getting insights, making better decisions faster. So when you hear data-driven decision making, what does that mean to you? Like bring that to a tactical reality as opposed to just a buzzword.
Yeah, I mean, it would be in two words: assumption, validation.
Mhm.
That's what I really embrace like thinking like a scientist, and
Right.
I am allowed to make assumptions, I'm allowed to make observations, whether or
Mm.
not I assign them to be a fact, which is really hard to do. I think and I'm super passionate about critical thinking, but in one of the things
Yep.
that I talk to a lot of people about is, even when you look at the scientific method, the entire purpose of your experiment is to fail to reject what you think, which is an
Right.
interesting concept because it's like
Right.
you're trying, in order to be right, you have to be wrong. And scientifically, it actually takes a lot for something to become a truth. That's why there's so many theories out there. We all come from different worldviews and perspectives. So if I have an assumption, I look to validate it with facts and information. Facts and information are not opinion. People make things problems. Data is pretty objective. So if
Yep.
I am thinking about, let's say, adjusting my market rent, I'm not going to do it because my community manager says that the rent's too high, or that they have failed, nobody's passed the screening criteria. I'm going to look at all of the different data points. I'm going to look at the four P's, right? Is it people? Are they answering the phone? Are they converting? Are they pre-qualifying? Are we advertising correctly? I'll take a look at
Mhm.
price, but I'm not going to make such a rash
Mhm.
decision that will
And
impact my
so,
assets value.
yeah, so I mean, you kind of alluded to this earlier. I mean, this is an industry that by history, by nature, tends to be a little more intuitive, a little more seat of the pants. How have you in your career, helped with the change management or gotten people to sort of let go? Because it's sort of easier to just go with your gut, right? You feels good, and if you've got the rank or you've got the voice, it's actually hard to go get that data, hard to do the measurements. So how have you supported, or what's the advice you would give people to create and support a true data-driven decision-making culture?
Sure. Yeah, and I love that. Change management is something I'm really passionate about. In my own organization, that's one of the things that I focus on heavily. Is
Mhm.
my the term that I coined is transformation navigating. And change, it will
Mhm.
always require, whether it's a product or an idea or decision, there's the tactical piece, but then there's the people piece. It's the psychological reorientation it takes in order for people to adopt change. And that's
Mhm.
really the driver for me to get the data, because
Mhm.
I could get people to do stuff, but that doesn't mean they're going to keep doing it. Doesn't mean it's going to adopt. It doesn't mean it's actually going to make an impact. So one of the things that I did, especially my last role, was invited voices to the table, and not just my executive team voices, but end user voices, the people who the change actually impacted, and went through a discovery and market validation
Right.
process first before implementing. The more voices, the better. The more stakeholders, the better. And then alongside identifying all of the steps that it would take to make a change, people don't realize that even if you change a small policy, habits take 14 to 21 days, right? So there's going to be a time period. You can't just update a
Right.
policy and everybody gets it. So
Right.
what are the things? Who are the people? And then selling people the problem, and not necessarily the solution, but selling them the problem.
Mhm.
Getting, for big changes, you're assigning a champion. You are bringing people into the conversation. You're getting them invested before you're doing all of the things. Being conscientious that there is going to be a gray area between A and C that we'll call B, which is my favorite spot. It's ripe for innovation. You're not married to
Yeah.
anything in the past. Being creative for the future and embracing that, and keeping close communication. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
process.
What do you see as some of the biggest challenges and barriers to, um, to data-driven decision making. I mean, the industry. I agree with you. The industry doesn't do enough of it, but there's also some things that get in the way of them being able to do that. So I'm very curious, kind of from your perspective, what are the barriers to good decision making?
Yeah, I think as a generalization, I don't think people know what to do with the information, or they don't
Mhm.
have time, or again, the adoption piece, like how do I work this new piece of information into my day-to-day life? When I'm working with organizations on change management, one of the pieces that they always forget is to identify a KPI. Like, how are you going to prove that the thing that you're doing is actually doing what it's doing? It's with more data, it's measuring it, it's training it. So I think there's so much out there. The right people don't know what to do with the information, and it can be overwhelming to try and figure it out. We're already overstaffed or understaffed. There's already so much going on, and that skill gap, I think, is really, really starts to shine. So I don't think people are intentionally trying not to make data driven experience or data driven decisions. I think they're making experience driven decisions, which are two
Right.
totally different things.
Yeah. So no, that resonates a lot with me. I mean, that's the cough coming through again. Sorry,
Yeah.
audience. When you think about the industry and the operational experience you had, were there any, I mean, obviously you look at occupancy and rent growth, but were there any metrics, any key indicators that you found particularly helpful? That if you were mentoring somebody new in the industry, kind of, look, you got to pay attention to occupancy, got to pay attention to availability, got to pay attention to rent growth, but pay attention to fill in the blank, and you're probably going to do better than others.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my last role, we had occupancy challenges just like everybody else, and occupancy is usually the loudest and the last KPI to change. So one
Right.
of the things I did was create like a tracking system that paid attention to all of the things that impacted occupancy. So it's the occupancy percentage, but it also had the delinquency, which shows patterns. It also shows how well the property is being managed, as I can see that either increase or decrease. The number
Yeah.
of files in eviction. I also layered in the most recent shop scores to see are you answering the phone? Also, number of available positions. If a property is understaffed,
Yeah.
that's huge. And to align all that data together, it really gives you a clear, objective picture where I'd be on the phone with people talking to them about their property performance and show them, and they don't even have anything to say. They're like, "Yep,
Yeah.
that's okay. Yeah, here's what we need to do."
That's what promise.
So, yeah.
Yep. So what are you working on these days?
Well, that's also a good question. So after I left my last role, and my last company was acquired by RPM Living, and I just decided to kind of do my own thing and was looking for long-term roles, and had some people reach out and ask if I did consulting, which I hate that word. I feel like consulting is like going to Costco. You pay a lot of money and don't get anything. So that's why I like transformation navigating. But I've been working with both prop tech companies and operators on change management, on organizational development, organizational recovery, um, acting as a part-time product manager, help tighten up value propositions. I really want to support the change management in technology.
Mhm.
So I've got a website up. It's einsteinsolutionsconsulting.com. So people can get in touch with me and kind of see what I'm up to. But it's kind of happened really organically, which has been nice.
Mhm.
I've got a couple clients I'm working with now, and it's really fun to see them grow and them change, and partner with a couple prop tech companies to do implementation.
Yeah. What's the most interesting prop tech innovation you've been seeing out there, whether it's a client or not a client or whatever, just observing prop tech, like what's really caught your eye?
Yeah, there is one that is coming up with a property management focused communication tool. So I
Mhm.
don't want to steal their thunder or say anything out of turn, but it is. I haven't seen anything like this before, and I actually came across a LinkedIn post, and it was like, "Oh, thank goodness." So think Slack, but built for multifamily. And so I'm connected with these people and kind of saw
Got
their
it.
product, and it sounds so simple, but it's something that we need, especially as we move towards decentralizing.
No, that makes a ton of sense. Okay, now that we've done the heavy lifting, we always like to end our show with a little bit of fun, rapid fire style, sort of James
Okay.
Lipton, like inside the actor's studio. So just 7 questions. There's only one rule, and that's don't think too hard. Okay.
Okay.
So question number one: what book has influenced you the most?
Oh, I just read Think Again by Adam Grant, and it is amazing.
What's your favorite time of day?
11 o'clock
AM or PM?
a.m. Good question.
Okay, either one.
Yeah.
I would have laughed even more if you said both.
Yeah.
What's
I
what
thought
what's
about
your
it.
favorite app?
Oh, that's a good one. LinkedIn.
What's your pet peeve?
Oh, unnecessary mistakes.
What's your spirit animal?
Tiger.
If you had to pick one food to eat forever, what would that be?
Apples.
Apples. Interesting. What is your go-to for having a good laugh?
Oh, my kids.
Your kids. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Jessica. You mentioned earlier the website. Any other ways folks can get a hold of you?
Yep, absolutely. I'm super easy to find on LinkedIn. They can send me an email, einsteinsolutionsconsulting@gmail.com. But again, pretty easy to find. So if you look me up, you'll find me.
Thanks again.
Thank you.